everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Samantha Anderson. I am a freelance artist and teacher hoping to inspire creativity. If you would like more videos like these, please take a second to like and subscribe down below. It really helps in the algorithm of YouTube to help get my videos seen to more people. If you want to receive notifications of when I go live, please make sure to hit the bell and choose all notifications. If you have any questions during or after the class, make sure to pop a comment down below and I will answer it as soon as I can. I'll be leaving timestamps down below so you can skip ahead to the start of class, but I will be sharing announcements as well as supplies, so make sure to stick around for that. If interested in learning more about my classes, please follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and feel free to check me out on Patreon where I teach exclusive classes to those who support me. In Patreon, I also give traceables for all of my live classes, including this one. Lastly, if you would like to share your work after class with me and others who painted along with us, please head over to Facebook as I have an artist community where you can share your finished painting with us. I'll leave links for all of that in the description box below. Thanks for joining me, and let's get started. Hello, welcome back to another live class. I'm excited for this one. Fall always makes me happy, so whenever I get to paint fall bright colors, it just makes me happy. Also, I realized that we haven't done a waterfall on the channel yet. I've done it in my Patreon at least once, possibly twice, but we haven't done a waterfall like that. We did a waterfall with a bridge a few months ago, but it was like a really long waterfall and it was kind of like far away. So this one's a little bit closer. We'll get to do a couple fun techniques with it and just have fun. But yeah, let's go ahead and go over some of the supplies, what we need for a class, and then I have a couple announcements with my Patreon. So speaking of Patreon, I do have a traceable available for you. Now for this specific class, because it's nature and I tend to do a little less, it's just easier for me to teach without a traceable. In terms of I don't feel like I need a traceable, or I feel like I could do it in class without having to prep the canvas, versus some classes I'm like, well, if I'm gonna need to spend an hour and a half to prep for this class, I might as well use the traceable, right? And that includes animals, people, or like buildings and structures and things like that. I will definitely use a traceable, because while I do have the skill and or ability to do that, I don't have the time. I'm a mother of three, and I paint during their quiet time, during their nap time. So that is that's like a 2-hour window that I get to do that with. So for me personally, I don't think traceables are cheating. I think they're a tool that we as artists use, just like anything else that we use. Our tape, our ruler, our brushes, these are all tools that we use that can make painting more joyful and easier to do. I typically like using traceables because then I can focus on painting instead of, oh, where am I supposed to put this? Where am I supposed to put that? So if you're like me in that matter, like, go use the traceable. It's $5 for the entire month and you'll get access to literally every single traceable for all of my live classes that I've ever put out on YouTube. So you'll have access to not only the rest of this month's classes, but also every other class that I've done. And you can cancel. Somebody asked if you can cancel anytime. Yes, you can cancel anytime. It goes for the whole month. So if you're only wanting something for this month, just make sure you cancel before the 1st of next month. Or if you want to stay for next month, you'll get all of those added to your inventory, and you'll have access to all of the traceables as long as you are a paying member. And let's say you are a member this month for this class, and you know you want to paint a couple other classes, but you know you're not going to stay. You can go grab a couple of them from like past months so that you have them for when you want to. and just they're there for you guys to enjoy. And if you can only be there for a month, like that helps me and my little family. So don't feel like you need to stay. You can go in there, grab a couple, and then be on your way. You don't feel like you need to stay, but it does help keep the free classes free on my YouTube, because all these I do weekly classes on YouTube for free. So it does help that. But yeah, this is available in my Patreon. You can cancel anytime. I'm not going to personally be using it, like I said, but if you're like me and you like kind of knowing where everything's going to go, and this is going to help you kind of relax and have more fun with the class, then go for it. Do it. Yeah, no judgment here. Okay. So that's that. That's kind of the lowdown. And if you have any questions about Patreon, please don't hesitate to ask questions. I'll give a little bit more detail on some of the other things available in Patreon in a little bit, including other classes too. I'm using an 11 by 14 canvas, stretched canvas, but use whatever you have. I think this would be beautiful in whatever size canvas you have. This would probably also be a beautiful canvas if it was like a large canvas that you could like put on your wall. But for the sake of this class and my studio space, I'm doing, all of my classes are 11 by 14, with the exception of a couple, but most of them, the majority of them are that. So yeah, that's what I will be using. If you have something else that you want to use, feel free to use that. I have 2 things of water. I have a paper towel, palette. I have a palette knife so that I can pre-mix my colors. Very useful. I don't dirty up my water before I use it. I don't, the wear and tear on my brushes is not as much because I'm not, mixing paint with it. As well as it's just, I can mix more paint without getting all that paint in my brushes. So it's my go-to, it's my preferred method of mixing paint before we paint. Paint before we paint. In terms of brushes, I have my go-tos out. My go-tos are a large filbert brush. I have a medium to small filbert brush, and then I have a couple round brushes. I have my medium-sized brush, which I like to use for texture. I call it my cloud brush, my texture brush, my dry brushing brush. Anything that's used kind of roughly or need texture, I will use that so that I don't ruin my other brushes. It's my go-to brush for anything texture-wise, or that I might ruin brushes otherwise. And then I have a couple round brushes. I have one that's a little bit more rounded tip and another one that's a little bit more pointed tip. I use them for different things. Both of these will be useful in this class for doing detail of leaves, like over here on the top left. You want to do a little bit more detailed leaves, that will be useful for that. And then I have a liner brush. This will be helpful for getting all those little tiny twigs if you want to add that sort of detail, which I think you should. You should always practice things that you're not comfortable with so that you get more comfortable with it, and then you get to explore, just widen your boundaries of what you can paint, and who knows, you might love using it and then not want to stop. I remember the first time I was so hesitant to get liner brushes because, like, you have small brushes, they work fine, like, you get by, but I finally caved in and I bought these brushes. I bought some liner brushes that I just really like, and they're on Amazon. All of the supplies I have are on my Amazon shop. And I remember after I bought them, I was like, why did I wait so long to buy these brushes, to buy liner brushes? Because they make painting so much more enjoyable, and it's so easy to put in all these little tiny twigs, and it's so fast and it's easy. And anyways, if you don't have liner brushes, buy a pack of them. It's amazing. Other things that you might need, if you don't have any sort of stippler brush or anything like that, we will be using these are hog bristle fan brushes. Now these are different than what might come in like a brush pack. Usually what comes in a brush pack is this one. You might think that they are the same. They are not. This one is very smooth, silky, and soft. It's with the nylon bristles. It's the same bristles as what most of the other bristles are. This one is very stiff, and it is from Hog Bristles. And the difference is this one, when you get it wet and you put paint on it, it clumps together and it does not fan, which is kind of the point of a fan brush. It doesn't work correctly. You can't really stipple, you just get globs of paint. The weight of the paint and the water stick it together and pull it down, and it doesn't work correctly. I'm sure that there are some places where you can use this, and I think that that's totally fine, but for what we are doing today, that will not work, and you might get frustrated thinking that they're the same brush, and they are not. Get something that has stiff bristles. Now, this might be an old brush that you've unfortunately left paint in, and you thought you should throw it away. Don't throw away your old brushes, because you can always use them for weird things like this. So if you have an old brush that you're like, I should be throwing this away, don't throw it away. Use it for texture. Use it for different stippling or something like that. But yeah, this is also in my Amazon shop. I think that you can tell that they are well used. I use them all the time. I love them. They are thick and they are stiff, and they hold the paint really well, and I can get all sorts of textures and leaves with these brushes. I have two different brushes that I kind of are my go-to. One is a big fan brush and one's a smaller one for a little bit closer detail. I have both of these that are just available here on the side for when I need them. If you don't have a fan brush or something with a thick bristle brush, I have this other one that I used for the longest time. It looks nice, but when you break it apart, it's actually very frayed, and I don't like using it for anything but stippling. So if you look at it this way, it's very frayed. And what's nice about having an old brush that you don't use for anything that it should be used for, you can kind of just do whatever you want to it. I like to use this as a stippler for that type of texture, and that's what I used to use instead of a fan brush before I got the fan brushes. So if you don't have a fan brush, you can still create this sort of texture with the leaves and that sort of thing. Just whenever you get it wet, make sure that you wipe it off, and then when you grab the paint, you will stipple in order to grab the paint, and it breaks apart all of these bristles and it fans it all apart, so that when you go and you add your color, it's going to kind of have that same effect of a fan brush. You just kind of have to use different parts of it so that you don't end up with, like, a block of color, because it's not fanned out like this. But yeah, there are other brushes, there are other ways to create that sort of effect. Hopefully you have a brush that will work for you. Okay, let's go over the colors. The colors are pretty simple. It's like the colors of the rainbow, to be honest. You have your black and your white, and then you have a brown, and then you just have like everything but purple. Excuse me, let me go get my water. If you painted with me like a month ago, it was like 4 or 5 weeks ago, I had a cough. And then on my birthday, like 3 weeks ago, I still had my cough. And I took a bunch of medication, and it slowly whittled down, and then now it's like starting to come back, and I'm like, are these just allergies? Why is it still here? So that's a little frustrating, but so I apologize for any coughing that will happen. It's gotten a lot better, but it's still there. Anyways, okay, so I have white and black and brown, and this is a raw umber. And then we have kind of rainbow colors, essentially. I have my medium yellow, a bright orange. I have a bright red, although there's not a whole lot of red in this, but you could put red. Go for it, it's your painting. And then I have my bright green and a phthalo blue. Now those are for more of the darker colors, down here. Now I like to mix most of my colors to whatever color I want them to be versus using the colors straight out of the bottle, which tends to make things a little bit more realistic, because even though this bright yellow, you could say, oh, this is the color of the leaves, but it's actually not. You have a tiny bit of brown, a tiny bit of white in there for a lot of these colors, and then it starts getting a little bit more orangey. So you have all these different colors within your colors, and it makes it a little bit more realistic to kind of color them as you go instead of using things right out of the bottle. If you're going for realism. If you're not, then just do whatever you want, and it's your painting. Okay, so that's pretty much all of the supplies. I don't think we will really need anything else. Yeah, that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions throughout the class, please don't hesitate to ask. That's kind of why I like doing these live classes, is so that you can ask as we go. So if you have any questions, let me know, and let's go ahead and get started. Okay, let's go ahead and figure out where everything is going, and then as you guys are drawing that, I'll go ahead and go over the announcements, and like our past class, the class that's coming up in Patreon. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to grab a yellow, because yellow I find is the easiest one to paint over, to cover up. If you like draw in a black line, that's going to be hard to cover up. And since a lot of there's already so much yellow in here that even if you don't cover it up, it's going to blend right in. So I think that is completely fine. I'm going to grab a small round brush of any sort, doesn't really matter. Grab a little bit of water. Grab a little bit of water. And we're going to figure out where everything is. Now obviously if you have a traceable, and you put this, it's pretty much, you just put it smack dab in the middle of your canvas, or maybe it's over here to the left a little bit. You can kind of put it wherever you want, but that's just kind of the general area. So what I'm gonna do, so you can see that this is about half, and the top of this mountain, where the not mountain, the cliff where the water drops off, is a little bit above half. So you can just go up here a little bit above half, kind of comes down, and then this probably comes like over here somewhere, but we don't know because there's a bunch of leaves. The leaves are bulky, come down here, and then they kind of circle back. All right, now down here there's a little pool of water that this is pooling into. It comes out, and there's a big rock right here in the center is kind of where it touches. And your rock doesn't have to look the same as the reference. It can be any shape, any size. If you don't like this process and you want to just have the traceable that does it for you, no one is judging you. That is totally fine. Sometimes I like to bring up that when I was in, I don't know, junior high, high school, I really wanted to learn how to paint faces. But I'm really keen on them looking correct and not out of place. And so for a month straight, I would trace the faces, and then I would put in all the shadows to create all of the shapes essentially. But I would trace the initial sketch, and in my mind I was like, oh, I'm cheating, but honestly it was not cheating. It was a way to be able to work towards a goal and create that practice mentality. And by the end of it, I got to the point where I was able to create a face out of my own mind because of the tracing that I had done up to that point, and it gave me practice in structure and all these things, and I was able to just look at a face and create from there because of that practice. So even though some people don't like traceables and things like that, even though somebody is kind of doing the work for you, it doesn't mean that you're still not learning from it. You're still learning the different things that you create and how they kind of mix and mash with each other, how everything corresponds with each other. So yeah, I'm really keen on, it's not cheating, it's just a tool that we get to use because you can learn from it, even if you don't think you are. All right, so I'm gonna put this kind of under. It's kind of like a cliff right here. It looks like rolling mountains, I'm not gonna lie. It looks like this is a lake, there's rolling mountains. We could just paint that, but no. I'm painting a waterfall. Okay. I will let you guys figure all that out. This is the stage where you get to mess up. So if you place something, you're like, I don't really like that there. You can get a clean brush with some water, and at this point, you can just, if you just put it in, you can just kind of take it off and redraw it. I actually wanted that there, so I'm just going to redraw it. But you can do that. You are allowed to kind of make mistakes in this area because this is all going to be covered up, okay? So don't be afraid of this process. This is a good process to do, especially if you are not using a traceable and you want to kind of feel it out and figure out if you can, draw it yourself. Don't be afraid of it. Just do it. And I'm actually looking at this, and I'm going to move this line up just a little bit because I feel like this is the same amount of distance here, and I'm just going to put it here. And I can take this, if I don't want this here, I'm just going to get some water, reactivate it, just so I'm not confused later. I didn't have to do that, but sometimes so I'm not confused and I remember that I'm like, oh, that wasn't a line that I intended to be there. Sometimes I like to just take it out. But yeah, while you guys are finalizing all of that, we're gonna go over what we painted last week and then what's going on Patreon. So this we painted last week as a part of our kind of October fallness. We did a different way of doing bokeh. So if you followed any of my bokeh classes, we usually use these, and while we did use some of these at the top, for the most part we did a different type of bokeh with the texture brush, which was a lot of fun. So if you like this sort of thing, if you want to learn flowers, leaves, if you want to learn hair, like this hair was so much easier than I anticipated. Like I knew how it was gonna go pretty much, but it came forth so much easier than I anticipated. So if you struggle with hair, you want to do portraits or anything like that, go do this tutorial. It is free on my YouTube. We did it last week, so it should be like right there if you go and search for it now. In my Patreon, we did this last month, and I should have had my new one done by now for this month, but man, it has been a busy couple of weeks, and I'm planning on doing it in the next couple of days so I can have it to you on Friday. That is the goal. So if you're in my Patreon, I'm sorry I didn't have it last week, and I'm hoping to have it this Friday. But this one we did last week. It's available in my Patreon. If you like books and kind of fantasy and flowers, then this one is for you. And if you subscribe, whenever you subscribe to a tier, you get access to literally everything, not only within that tier, but everything below it. So there's the lilac tier, which is traceables. There's then the magenta tier, which is $10, and you get not only access to all of the tutorials, but all of the traceables. And then in my Cobalt class, which is our $20 tier, we go live every single Tuesday, with the exception of some Tuesdays if I'm out of the office, I'm not in town, or it's my birthday. But yeah, we go live weekly and work on a painting over 1 to 2 months. And this is what we are working on. Currently, we are working on a kind of, I think someone told me is a German castle, and I am ecstatic with how it's turning out. I'm really excited. So yeah, that is what we are working on. We've finished the sky. We've pretty much finished all of the detail. There's so much detail in this background, but it was a lot of fun. We spent about an hour and 15 minutes yesterday on the background. I think I might add a couple more things here at the end if I feel like it needs anything. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. So if you want motivation to work on something like longer than 2 hours, I was talking to my Cobalt class and I was saying that like something that I love about that class is that it encourages you to spend a little bit of time on it, like an hour, and then walk away from it. And it teaches you how to paint for a certain time and then walk away and then have the courage to go back to it. Because a lot of people, they'll do classes and if they don't finish it in one sitting, they'll get discouraged and they won't go back to it. How many canvases do you have sitting in your, closet or back, whatever, that you think that you're going to get to and you've lost all motivation for it? This class teaches you how to and what to paint so that you don't lose motivation. Like making sure that you finish a certain section so you don't have to remix those same colors to continue that section. So for instance, when we did the first one, we did all of the sky. And then I wanted to do this background, but I knew that was going to take another hour, and we didn't have an hour. We had 15 minutes. So we did the blue tops. And then when we were done with that, after we were, for the next class, we did all the background. And I knew that we didn't have enough time to start anything else. So we added a couple details, put in back some of our things, and just being able to recognize like, okay, I only have 10 more minutes. I'm not going to get lost in something that I can't finish, because when you don't finish a section, it's really hard to start back up and get back into it. And that's something that we do constantly throughout this class, is just learning how to pace yourself and work on a class for longer than 2 hours. Because while these classes are so fun and so rewarding to finish a whole painting in 2 hours, sometimes you want to paint something that's gonna take longer than 2 hours and you don't have that time to spend in one sitting. So being able to learn how to do certain things so that you don't lose that motivation is really, really important. But yeah, anyways, that is that. We're doing that in my Patreon. If you want more information on my Patreon, feel free to go to my page. You can message me, all that jazz. But yeah, hopefully you have this all set out. We are going to get started with painting. My apologies. Tanya, yes, I can't wait till it's done. It's already looking really good. So I'm really excited for it. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get out my white. So I have my white. I'm gonna get out just the tiniest bit of brown and a tiny bit of black. Because while someone might say that the sky is white, is it? Is it white? Something I love doing is really looking at the colors and really looking at what color it actually is. And I would say that, yeah, it's white. It's got clouds, but even clouds have shades of your brown and your blacks and your blues and all these other colors. Even if it looks white, you're gonna have those shades. So I would say it's more of like a super duper duper light gray. So what we're gonna do, and this will also help in terms of putting on a background where you're gonna actually be able to see where you've painted and where you haven't painted, because sometimes painting white on white, you're like, have I painted this section? Like what, trying to, tilt it up so you can see whether or not it's wet. We're gonna take a good amount of this white, if not all of it. I'm going to take a tiny bit of black and a tiny bit of brown, and we are going to make the lightest of grays. So that only in person can you see the difference. And could you put white? Yes, you can. And if you want to put white, go for it. You don't have to mix a new color. But part of my job as a teacher also is to train our eyes to not see what we want to see or to see what we think we see, but to see what actual colors are on the canvas, are on the picture reference that we are painting. And this really helps in terms of realism. This helps in terms of portraits or lighting, anything that has any sort of lighting. This is all very dulled down, and there's no like sunlight or anything like that, so it kind of helps with that aspect of it. But whenever you're dealing with lighting and things like that, or portraits and colors and skin and all that stuff, it's really important what color, because it creates the whole aesthetic of things, or the atmosphere, or whether or not there's a reflection or whatever. Color is really important. So part of this is just making sure that if you do want to go for a more realism take on it, try to really look at what color it actually is versus what color you think it is or what color you want to think it is. All right, so I'm going to take this color. It looks like it's white, but it's like a very light gray. And I'm going to go ahead and put this on the top. Not only does this feel like closer to what it actually should be, but now I actually get to see where I've painted without turning it to the light and trying to see a reflection gloss for wet paint. It's really helpful. But if something's actually white, then I'll paint it white. That's not why I'm doing it. So I'm painting all the sides first, because that is, honestly, that's the main thing that you should be doing, is making sure that all your sides are painted. If you like wrapping the canvas, which is what we call it when we paint all of the sides as well. All right, so I've wrapped the canvas, and now I'm just going to cover this whole section in this grayish white. You can see the difference a little bit on the screen. I'm trying not to add too much water because I don't want it to be translucent. I want it to be a thick white, or I should say gray. And just to go over the entire thing, a lot of this is going to get covered up, but I'm going to make sure that there's no clumps of paint by just going all the way across and very big motions all the way across. Work my way all the way down. And actually, I have less streaks when I move up, so I'm just going to do that. It probably has to do with the angle of my my brush. All right, so that is that. Now we have to wait until this is fully dry, so let's go ahead and mix all of our colors. I'm gonna rinse out my brush, make sure I'm not leaving paint in there to dry. And something that I forgot to mention earlier is that if you are not on my Facebook, that is like the place to be. So I'm gonna go ahead and send a link in the chat right now. That is like the place to be. It's where I post all of my classes, links to classes, upcoming classes, news, polls. I post giveaways around Christmas. So if you want to be involved in any way, Facebook is where I post about 90% of all of my content. I also create Facebook events for all of my classes so that they're really easy to share with friends and family and other people who might want to paint along. So if you're not on my Facebook, if you don't follow me on Facebook, go follow me, and then you can find me easier and join classes easier. I apologize. There's feels like there's something stuck in my throat. Okay. Let's go ahead and mix together some colors. I'm just gonna kind of move all this away. We'll probably use that white again. It's not too much of one color to not use, so. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and get out more yellow. I'm gonna get out some orange. And what's interesting is you might think that this orange is just out of the bottle. But what I see here is a very vibrant dark orange, and the one in here is a very light, I was gonna say airy, but that's not really a color. It's light, it's yellow, maybe a little bit of white in there. So we're gonna have fun with the colors, we're gonna make a few different colors, a few different yellows and oranges, tone it down with browns and things like that. So yeah, while that's all drying, let's have fun with color mixing. And if you don't like color mixing, I'm sorry, we're gonna color mix. If you want to use the stuff right out of the bottle, that's totally fine, and it will be bright and vibrant. It just might not look as realistic as what we're going for. But again, it is your painting, and if you want to do that, I'm not gonna stop you. So I'm gonna take some of this orange, and I'm gonna take a good chunk of this yellow, because the yellow, it'll take a lot more yellow to taint the orange than it will the orange to taint the yellow. Alright, so I'm gonna need even more yellow. I'm gonna take the rest of this yellow and some of this grayish white. And I'm going to tone it down a little bit by adding a touch of brown. I love adding brown to certain colors because it makes it more earthy. Whether it's brown to orange, brown to green, it just makes it more earthy toned. Alright, so this is a really good color. This is probably the darkest orange color. Now I know it doesn't look very dark, but believe me, it is. Okay, so now I'm going to take some of this, and I need to add more yellow to it. I'm going to add a bunch of yellow, so now it's going to be a little bit more of a yellow orange. I'm going to add a little bit more of that white to it, brighten it up even more. So now we're getting into almost like a yellow ochre almost, but a little less brown. Now it looks yellow on here, but I would say it's probably closer to an orange hue than it is a yellow. Now I'm going to add just pure yellow. I was like totally fine the whole day, and I don't know why I'm coughing all of a sudden. Alright, so I have my yellow. I'm going to add some of this gray again, and then just mix it with the slight orange that I have on my palette knife. And this will just make it a little bit warmer, but it will still be yellow. And remember, by adding that kind of grayish, you're also adding a little bit of brown and a little bit of black to that. Okay. I think that these are beautiful colors for our yellows. I'm gonna go ahead and put in, I was gonna say for the background, I'm gonna go ahead and put in the first coat of our yellow. Our yellow's over here on the left side, and then our yellow's over here on the right. And we're gonna just start adding in kind of our background forest color. So I'm gonna grab my large fan brush, there we go, words. And I'm just going to add this. I apologize for this making so much noise. You don't have to use a fan brush for this. I just find that it helps in the process in the long run of just having this already here. I'm just really roughly adding these colors. Add more. Because each little piece that comes out, it ends up looking like a branch in the long run. And I'm just coming in here with the different colors. just adding the different colors kind of where I see them, allowing for that background to come through. I think that this process is like so therapeutic. And go ahead and I'm just adding maybe the darker oranges up top here. And start adding those layers of the oranges. On top of that yellow, and it's starting to add that, it's just starting to add those layers. And I'm gonna bring this yellow down a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and come in with like some orange and just put in some very what I would say obvious like leaves that aren't like that are coming off from like maybe some closer trees. And I'm kind of just using the tip of my fan brush at this point. The hard part is not to overdo it. You want to still have definition and kind of see where everything is coming from, right? I'm gonna go ahead and do the sides so that they're not left behind. Okay. I think that looks pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and rinse out my brush. So we have this first layer, then we're gonna have some trees, and then we're gonna have a second layer of leaves be the greenery, the green, and then we're gonna come back over it with some yellow in the super front area. But we have a couple things to put in before we put in that green. So the first thing we're going to do is put in some of our darker colors. Okay, so before we get to do that, we have to create kind of this brownish yellow color that we're going to be using down here. And actually, let's go ahead and just put down a, let's put down a undercoat with our brown and our black. So an undercoat is we can also do like a wash of sorts. So it's a little bit of black, a little bit of brown, but it's going to be a lot of water. And the reason I like to do this is, one, so we know where all of our darks and lights are, and we don't feel like we have to, if something is off or something's not the way that we want it, we don't feel like we have to like start all over. We know by doing this that we are putting down a coat with the intention of covering that coat up, and we get to kind of make those decisions as we go. So looking at this is going to be our darkest area. So I'm going to go right in with my black. Okay, I go right in with my black, and I'm going to put mainly black on here, and I might have to darken it up later, and that's fine. We have our dark black, and it kind of gets lighter here, so I'm just going to add a little bit more water. Okay. Okay, it gets a little bit darker here, so I'm going to add back in that black. This is all really dark. I'm just going to put that in. Doing undercoats and washes are really comforting for me because I'm a little bit of a perfectionist in like wanting something to look good the first time. And by knowing that, okay, this is an undercoat, it's not gonna look perfect, like knowing and understanding that is really helpful for this process, because it allows me just to relax and paint and not have to worry about, oh, this color needs to be changed, and you know, second guessing myself, and it can really take a toll on the whole painting experience, you know. So doing something like this, I'm like, okay, this is all just kind of an undercoat, and even if I end up keeping some of that undercoat to be my final coat, that's my decision, and I don't feel like I have to. It just gives me the flexibility to do that rather than to feel like I have to change this now or it's not gonna look good or whatever the case is. We're our own worst critics, so I know you know. Okay, so with this rock, there is a large black part right here. I'm gonna get some brown. Now this is definitely not the color that it should be, but I'm just gonna grab some white and kind of just put it in this area. That's not what it's gonna look like, but you know, that's okay. It allows me just to like move on and not get too tied up in details that aren't gonna matter right now anyways. Okay, there's a little bit of a shadow or something there. I don't know what it is, but we're just gonna put it in anyways and keep moving forward. Gonna put more browns in this area. Again, we're kind of just getting the color on here, and we're not worried about specifics. We have a couple rocks here. Which I'm just grabbing a little bit of white with that kind of black brown area. While this is still wet, I'm going to put in some, just like some highlight areas. While this black is kind of going. Got more black. Lots of black in this area, and that's okay. I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna come back over here and make this more blacker, but for now this is fine. But it's a good starting spot. All right, and with that, I'm gonna take this brownish white color that I kind of concocted a little bit, and I'm gonna just add this little just very loosely. That doesn't have to be like, I'm trying to get the construction of it, not necessarily focus on the colors, if that makes sense. Because we're going to cover this part up with our green. Just trying to get like the shape of this all. That's kind of like a cool shelf that happens here. And then the rest of this, I'm actually going to paint black. At least up here. Being really loose and kind of like that. Just kind of stippling a little bit. I'm being really loose with all of this. Because doing it loose allows me to just be able to make changes in the future without being tied down to what I already painted. At this point, I'm just trying to get paint. I'm just trying to get paint on it, right? Okay, so I'm gonna rinse out my color, rinse out my brush, rinse out my brush, and then we're gonna make a green color. So I have a feeling some of you might have gone a little bit slower than and that's totally fine. I couldn't find the right timer for my son's quiet time, so I'm gonna go reset his timer, and then I will be right back, okay? All right, apologies for that. I usually have a timer that I can set any amount of time pretty much, so I'll usually set it for like a little over 2 hours, and so he knows like when he can come out. and I can't find it. The only clock I could find is my other timer, which can only go an hour, so goes 1 hour, and then I gotta reset it for 1 more hour, which he's not happy about, but you know, that's how it goes. Okay, so let's go ahead. We're gonna do a dark green color so we can get this color in, at least 1 coat of the dark green color. I'm gonna get out my green and blue. Now the green that I have is a very bright green. So depending on the color of green you have, you might not need to add as much blue or black as I do. But I have this green. It's very close to some of the darker greens in here. So we're just gonna, I have this green plus black, and then I'm also gonna add a tiny bit of brown. And if you want to add each one of these colors and mix them so you can see what each color does, feel free to do that. But I know enough about color theory that I can just add these colors and know I'm going to get somewhere close to what I plan. And then I do need yellow. All right, so that is good enough. Again, at this point, we're just trying to get a first coat of this color. We're not trying to get it the perfect color. And you can put the color on there and then realize that you're like, oh, I definitely need more yellow next time. And then you can make that adjustment without feeling like you're like, well, I already put this on here and this is the color that I was going to use, and feeling like you can't change. But you can always make adjustments. And if you go into it with the mindset that you can make adjustments as you go, it's a lot easier to make those adjustments. That was green. So I know that this green is a little bit too dark, so when I do it again, I know I'm going to lighten that up. With that said, I'm going to rinse this out, and we are going to do some trunks. And you might be saying, like, what is the monstrosity of what I have created on my canvas? It started out so pretty, and now it looks bleh. This is called the ugly phase. Welcome. Most artists go through this phase, and this is why it's really important to know when to stop a painting, because if I stopped here, I'd be like, ugh, I don't want to finish this, it's ugly. You'll note that whenever I'm doing paintings, like for longer than a 2-hour period, I usually will try to do like individual things so I can get through an ugly phase. I don't ever really stop at an ugly phase. So for instance, with this here, I did the sky, and I like stopped at the sky. I didn't put down like an ugly coat of the greenery. I just did the sky and then kind of stopped there. And then with this, we went through an ugly phase with the greenery, but we didn't stop there. We finished it out before moving on, because if you stop in the middle of an ugly phase, it's really hard to get back into it. So with this said, welcome to the ugly phase. This is what it looks like. Trust me, it's not going to look like that by the time we're done, okay? It's okay. Okay, so let's move on. let's go ahead and create the kind of brownish black color that we're going to use for our I kept wanting to say stumps. They're not stumps. Our trunks. There we go. Something that's like kind of similar and sounds similar, but it's not the same. Okay, I have such a problem with that. Okay, so I have a dark brown. That I mixed with my black and my brown. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a very small portion of that and I'm going to mix white with it. And we're going to create a light kind of grayish brown stump. Not stump, I just said it again. A trunk color for the background, because things in the back, because of the atmosphere, maybe the type of trunk that it is, it's going to be a little bit lighter. So I'm going to take my my handy dandy liner brush, get it wet, mix it in some of this paint. I'm going to continually grab water and mix it in this area of paint until I get a clean, like liquidy substance that is easy to move on the canvas. And I'm going to start from the ground up. And I'm going to go ahead and just add these and this is where you start spending a little bit of time adding all those little branches. And they don't have to all be from the base. You're not going to see every single one of these. You're going to see bits and pieces of these. gonna start adding this black to my concoction, my kind of brownish, so that it can become darker as I move closer and closer. And then when you're ready to put in some of the closer ones, like there's this one that I just love. It like comes over here, but then it goes up, but it's like so like jagged. It's so cool. So I'm gonna try to replicate that. Comes here and then it comes this way. And then it comes back the other way and then comes the other way. And the thing about these types of trees is that there's really no like wrongdoing. As long as the base is thicker than anything above it, then you can't go wrong. And you'll notice as I go down, I'll just make sure that anything, like if I get a knot that's like bigger than something that's previously like here, this part is bigger than this section right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that anything below it is at least that big. Because trees grow out and you're going to have that. Okay, there's a couple other white trunked ones in here that you can put in. At this point, a thing to note is like the more the merrier. You can't really overdo putting in too many trunks, at least in my opinion. Because the more you have, the busier it's gonna look, and the more realistic your forest, which theoretically should have a lot of trees, right? The more realistic it's going to look, at least in my opinion. I'm going to put a couple other dark ones over here. But don't go too crazy, because a lot of this is going to get covered up. But if you want practice for doing liner brush work and things like that, this is a great time to just practice all you can. And then if it doesn't look great because you're practicing, you can just cover it up with all of your greenery. All right. Speaking of greenery, I'm going to get out my smaller brush and I'm going to put in some of this dark color, add a little bit of brown to it. I might need to brighten it up just a little bit. Yeah, I do. I definitely need to brighten it up. Okay, so I'm going to add some white to it. And then I'm probably going to add some yellow to it as well. I think it's finally time to get out my other yellow. Yellow, a little bit of white. Alright, the point of this part is when you go up past the black is to not oversaturate it. You want to be able to see that gorgeous color behind it. And I think that there's a couple other green parts. I'm going to put green up here, but I know I want to add a little bit more detail to the greenery over here, so I'm just going to leave it at that. There's a green, there's kind of a green one over here that we're just going to add a little bit to. Green over here. Okay, and that's kind of all we're gonna do because we can't really finish that greenery until we finish what's down here. And thankfully most of this is black, but we only have about 40 minutes left, and so we do need to kind of add some details to what's down below here. Alright, so I'm going to grab my large filbert brush, grab some of this black, and this in here is a little bit more black than what I did before, so we're just going to add that here. I'm going to add some of this black back in here by tapping it in. Alright, so that's helped that. I'm going to put in another coat of this black. And then I'm just going to fill the rest of this in with black, because I really do believe that it is mostly black in here. That also just makes it easier for us to work through this section, just covering it with black. And that will also make the waterfall stand out if it's over that black. Yeah, if it's over the black. I'm going to put in a little bit more darks here. Just going to kind of put in those darks where I see them, and I'll be able to come over that with highlights and stuff. Alright, so that's pretty much it. I will come behind with actual colors for that, but to get the main part of that all just black is really helpful. Okay, let's go ahead and create some of these other colors. I'm going to create a kind of a brownish yellow with some brown, some orangey yellow, maybe a little bit of white. And then I'm going to put a darker version of that, but just adding black. I'm going to put a darker version of that as the base for this rock right here. When I get to where the waterfall is, I am going to put in some darker some darkness because the waterfall itself creates a shadow, and you're going to want that darkness over it. I'm then going to use that same color to create some texture. And just with whatever's on my brush, I'm going to go ahead and give some texture in other places. And you'll notice that I'm using the flat side of my brush. I'm using the flat side of my brush to get texture. That's what it looks like close up. But when you zoom away, you can even go back into your black and re-put in any dark spots that you feel like you need to. We're just putting in distant rock. I'm gonna get out my filbert, and with those same kind of like grays, I'm going to put it on here. I'm just gonna use the same kind of grayish browns. And let me tell you, I am not worried about making this smooth because this is a rock, and rocks have lots of texture, lots of colors on them. So I am not worried about this having blendedness to it, if that makes sense. I am just plopping on this color, allowing it to just be a highlight or a low light or whatever. Using the side of the brush to kind of brush on some other stuff. I'm gonna go in here with the darker version of it. And again, I'm just kind of blending it slightly, but not to blend it, just to add that texture. And with those same colors, I'm going to put in some rocks here. Just using all the same colors. You can use different colors if you want to, like if you have more blues that you want to use or more grays that you want to use, that's fine. You can use your finger to smear if you want to add texture that way. There's a bit of texture on the rock. Just in a quick motion, I'm just going to add that. A couple other rocks. Gonna add some of that some of the leaves. Add the leaves whenever you feel like you're at like a done point with your rock. I'm going to take my texture brush and I'm going to grab a little bit of black. I'm going to add a little bit of darkness to what's over here to give a little contrast, because you can't really have the light without the dark, and there's not a whole lot of dark over here, so it's kind of hard to see what's what. So I'm just going to have the rocks a little bit more protruding into the light versus just all the way in the light. You can add imperfections to the rock by adding some different shadows to it. Alright, I think that's enough on the rock. I really like the rock, so I think I'm going to keep it that way and stop working on it. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to use this green again, but I'm going to lighten it up with my yellow, more yellow, and some white. A little too light, so we're just going to go a little bit darker. All right, and I'm intentionally making it darker over here on the left because it is darker over there in the picture. It's further away from the light. So I'm kind of blending in some darker colors over there and allowing the lighter colors to be over here. And I actually think that is really close to the color. I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing up here and just add some texture, some different colors. And then adds a little bit of black in there to help guide the shadowing. And I'm just looking at the reference, just trying to get it to look like it as best as I can. But again, you don't have to follow the reference. All right, that is pretty much all of that. We have 20 minutes to put in the rest of our greenery, our yellow, and our waterfall. So let's go ahead, let's go ahead and put in our waterfall last, because we still have a little bit of greenery to do up here. So I'm going to take my small brush, grab a little bit of yellow, and I'm going to put in some bright green, greenish yellow. And we're going to follow that down below here into this area. There's that. I'm gonna rinse off my brush. I'm gonna put a couple of this yellow into the green, over the green. You can mostly see it right here. Don't forget to come back up here and add a little bit of that orange over the tops of all those trees. I'm gonna take one of my round brushes and go ahead and add some actual individual leaves. Over here on the side. Just as an added touch. You don't have to do this, but I think that for something that's a little bit closer, it might hit home a little bit. Add that off to the side, just as something that's a little closer. I'm going to again add a very close tree, and I think I'm going to start it off by using a filbert because there's a tree that comes off this side. It's on the lighter side. And now I get to come back and add these little pieces that are coming down. And again, all of that training earlier of practicing up there will probably pay off now because by now you'll be really good at it. I kind of love this like drooping droopiness that it has. All right. And I think we are ready finally for the waterfall, which is like probably like the main thing of why you're here. I'm gonna rinse out my fan brush because we are gonna do a fan brush technique. Gonna rinse this out as best as I can. I'm gonna move some of this out of the way so I can have a little bit more space on here, which is one of my favorite things about this palette, is being able to kind of clean it off during class and start fresh. If you don't have one of these palettes, they are so nice. And if interested on where to get it, it is on my Amazon shop, which you can go in there and grab it from there, which is helpful to my channel and also helpful to you because it's great. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a filbert brush, the small one, and I'm going to grab my white. And the first thing I'm going to do without getting any water is I'm going to do the top of this. So I'm going to figure out where the top of it is. And we're gonna take this filbert, or sorry, not filbert. We're gonna take the I went a little bit too far down with my fan brush, or with my filbert brush. So I'm just kind of taking off that line that I created. I'm gonna take the fan brush and we're just going to pull down with a little bit of water. You can have a little bit of water. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to kind of wiggle my brush up here. Kind of splash it a little bit. And we can come in with a little bit more exact feature in my brain, and come in with a couple more obvious streams of water with the liner brush that are maybe supposed to be a little bit more obvious. You can use your fingers to kind of now mine came over just a little bit and I kind of covered a lot of that extra-ness, but that's okay. You can always come in with the same colors and add more details in other places if you wanted to. But yeah, that is pretty much it But yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I really enjoyed doing this. Please let me know if you have any questions. But for now, we will see you let's see, we'll see you next week. Will we see you next week? Let's see. We will see you next week, but it's not going to be on Wednesday. My next week's class will be on Thursday because I will be out of town Monday through Wednesday, and I already took off the first week of the month, so only doing 2 live classes I felt really weird, and I wanted to teach more. I wanted to do more than just 2 classes. So next week it's going to be on Thursday. So just in case that doesn't work for you or works for you better, I just want to let you know that next week will be on Thursday, same time, same place. Feel free to go over on to YouTube, like my actual channel. You can go over on Facebook. You can go to my Facebook community, which oh my gosh, sorry. I was getting a call I always get calls from my doctor's office at 4 p.m. I think this happened last week too, where I tried to like get out of it and then it ended up answering. Sorry. so weird. Anyways, well, that is a good reminder that it is 4 o'clock and I have to end the class. But yeah, feel free to go over onto my Facebook community. Share your work. I love seeing your guys's your paintings. I always love doing things in person, and one of my favorite things in the world is to be able to see all of the paintings at the end of the class. And doing things online, I can't do that unless you post it. So this is a great place to post it. Go onto my Facebook community. Tomorrow I will post on my Facebook page, but usually the night of I will add an album. I'll post mine, and you can go into that album and add yours to essentially kind of mimic the I took this class, I was a part of this, and here's my painting. And it's a really fun experience, because we even had today somebody come in and paint a old tutorial that was from last year, and it was the owl, the barn owl, and it came out so beautiful, and it was so cool to be able to see somebody's painting that, the class was a year ago, so to be able to see that was really cool. But I'll stop talking, get you out of here. But thanks so much for joining me. Next week will be on Thursday, and we will see you then. Bye, guys.